What's up, crew? Welcome to Filming in Progress, the show that takes you backstage into the world of local businesses and the people who make them shine. Today, we're diving into the remarkable story of Holly Singer, founder of Milk Jar Candle Co. From crafting candles in her kitchen to championing inclusivity and philanthropy, let's explore Holly's journey of creativity, dedication, and community impact. Holly, how'd you first get into candle making?
I first started making candles because I wanted to buy healthier candles than what I was currently buying. I was getting the Bath & Body Works, and I learned that burning paraffin candles was not healthy. There was like petroleum byproducts in them, and I went out to go buy them, and they were pretty expensive. So I think at the time I was in my mid to early 20s, so I was a bit of a poor student. So I was like, I can figure out how to make these. So went on Google, looked up getting soy wax and some wicks, and I loved wood wicks, and some oils, so I bought them and bought some jam jars, I think, or rocks glasses, I think, from Walmart, and tried making candles. And the first few were okay. I didn't know about wick size or fragrance load. This is really funny. Candles, you actually can only add a certain percentage of scent. And I just wanted these candles to be super, super smelly. And so I just dumped cups and cups of oil in. I didn't read the instructions. I'm kind of one of those people that doesn't read the instructions first. I'll just do it right away. And then I realize I should have read the instructions. And then my candles set in like layers of wax and oil, and they burned horribly. So I learned from that, and I did a little bit more research, and just started having fun making candles and blending scents. And really, it was just personal. It was just wanting to burn something cleaner and not spend a lot of money being a poor student.
Right. And so how did you make your first sale? How did it become a business?
Well, my idea for making it into a business kind of started in about 2016. It was in April, I remember. And my friend Carolyn, she worked at Kitnase at the time. She asked if I wanted to sell my candles that I would make, because she would see me make them. Sometimes I'd give them to her. And she just asked if I wanted to sell them at Kitnase for this relief for the Fort McMurray forest fire victims, because they were bringing on a bunch of vendors to raise money. And I didn't have a brand name, a business insurance. And so that kind of got my wheels spinning, like, oh, I wish I could have done that, but can't really sell it before I have a company. So maybe I do want to sell this and create a few, and I can use it as a way to give back. So that's really how I kind of came up with the idea to make candles. My goal was only to sell them at markets here and there. I actually had applied for nursing school at the time, so that was my goal in January, to go to nursing school. And I thought it could be a good way to use it as a vehicle to give back to a community that I really care about from my earlier kinesiology degree from the U of C, which was working with people with disabilities. And then I also thought I could purchase some nursing textbooks with the extra cash.
That's really cool that from the foundation, it was always about giving back, like be pre-business even, you never hear businesses like that. How did you create a business from primarily wanting to give back?
Gosh, I don't know how this happened, to be honest. I think it's always been authentic, the philanthropic aspect, the community, the caring, I'm very people motivated. I mean, even wanting to be a nurse. I'm motivated by people, not necessarily by results or money. I understand that results and money help me do the work that Milk Jar is doing, which is caring for people and creating opportunities. So there's always a balance, but I never envisioned myself being an entrepreneur ever. I'm very grateful that I am. Sometimes I think I don't know what I'm doing though. Every day I'm like, there's so many other people, other businesses that know what they're doing a lot more than I do. Even though you'd look from the outside, it looks like I know what I'm doing. And I think though it's because Milk Jar for me made it 3 years ago. Everything's a cherry on top at this point. And I think we are quite authentic. We do really show, we didn't start a business to make all this money and decided to add caring into it to increase profits. Caring was a part of it from the very beginning. So I think people see that, and they see that it is real. I think sometimes when businesses add caring as a way to make up for something, or they say they're going to donate and then they don't show receipts for it. There's kind of a reason for that sometimes, and your audience and the customer sees right through that too. So I think we've just had a lot of support. It's felt real from the beginning, and I've had a lot of fun with it. I haven't put too much, I put a lot of love into it, but I've never really identified with Milk Jar, if that makes sense. Like, I've never been worried if it failed, which I think has removed this fear of being perfect. And I just keep doing, like, I make a workshop and hopefully people come. Like, that was kind of when I created the candle making class. It's like, maybe no one will come. Hopefully some people do, but it's okay. Maybe, like, it won't bother me if they don't. And so it just felt really natural. It was easygoing. There was not a lot of pressure on it. I've never put pressure on this to be anything. I think now, because we have so many staff members and so many people really care about Milk Jar, and I have staff members that want to retire at Milk Jar now. I'm like, okay, we got to make sure we're making right decisions, and we're growing and we're keeping it going. But it feels easy. It feels like it's just been a nice cascading effect of just good things coming our way.
That separation, you said that you've never felt like you've never identified as the company. That's super interesting. I feel like most business owners, most entrepreneurs, they live and breathe their company, which is not. Like, how do you separate yourself from that?
It might be a personality trait. I don't. I think a lot of people that maybe tend to go into business at the start, they see the end goal first. Like, that is, and maybe they make it mean something about who they are, or, and I'm not saying this for everyone, but, even if I'm being honest, like, I didn't write a business plan for Milk Jar until year 3, and it was because I had to. Like, I was in the HEBX program, and I think I had to have a business plan, so I made one. And I don't think I've looked at it ever since. And maybe some of my managers would not like to hear that, because they probably want to know that I have a plan. But it's we have a plan. We know where we're going. But I don't put a lot of pressure that Milk Jar is me. I am me. Milk Jar is its own thing. It's my baby. And it's its own beast, and it's a lot of people's baby, I think, too. I love when people come in and they are so passionate about it, and they just really care about how they can add their value, or they can find their purpose here. It just makes me so happy, and I also love to play in my time a lot, so I'm not a workaholic. I've had my years where I've definitely worked a lot of overtime, a lot of Christmases, a lot of late nights pouring candles when I had to, because I really believed in the mission and what we were doing, and I knew there was a period of time that I probably just had to do that. But it's just kind of a mindset, I think, and I don't think business owners maybe ask themselves that question, like, oh, do I identify with my company, and I think you can kind of tell, like, if someone gives you a bad Google review, do you break down that they gave you personally a bad Google review? It's kind of like those little things. If you lose a client, are you so embarrassed to tell the people around you because you think you failed? It's really important to separate the business. Your business can be your baby, but it shouldn't be who you are, because there's nothing guaranteed. I think even sometimes I don't live in this state of anxiety or fear that one day Milk Jar is gonna become obsolete, or a new candle company is going to come in and take all of our clients or something like that, which it could happen. But if that happens, I thought I had a pretty good run at it, and hopefully do the things to not make that happen, but not doing it out of fear, just doing it out of love, and just being excited every day to be here. Hopefully that made sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You said something in there that I find really interesting, which is that Milk Jar made it 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. What gave you that sense that this is it?
I remember saying that out loud, so I've never lost that. It may even be 4 years ago now, but I think it was when I paid off my personal credit card debt. When I started Milk Jar, I actually had a decent chunk of personal credit card debt, because I did do a semester in nursing school, so I had a $7,000 student loan. I think couple years previous I was serving, and I have a kinesics degree, but I was working in the field, but not making too much money, and it was only part-time. So I was serving at night, some nights, but I think I was eating at a lot of restaurants, going to a lot of music festivals. I was spending a lot of money and kept putting it on my credit card. So I think I had like 20 grand a credit card. Oh, and then I started Milk Jar, and I put 10 grand on a credit card to start Milk Jar, which I maybe don't advise people to do, but it's what I did. And not even knowing that anything was gonna happen from it. I think I knew, I was like, oh, I'll be a nurse. I'll be able to pay this off with nursing one day. But I think that kind of debt that I had, that whatever, it was 25,000, that kind of was just paying off the interest. My parents probably wouldn't like to hear that I was doing that. They taught me really good money skills, but yeah, I just had a couple bad years of just overspending, kind of getting in this hole, and then going back to school and not realizing I was gonna go back to school and not have any income. And I was like, oh no, I didn't get rid of that credit card debt. So I think that moment when I just was able to pay myself, I never thought Milk Jar was gonna pay me. I never thought that was gonna happen. And it was maybe year 3. I could have probably started paying myself sooner, but I really wanted to keep investing it back in the company, buying wax melters, trying to get a bay. So it's kind of when I moved into this space that I was like, hey, gotta pay myself even, I think it was like 30K a year, like just something. 30K a year, 35K a year, and then I pulled like a nice big like dividend payment or something. I asked my bookkeeper, I'm like, I haven't paid myself in 3 years. It was like, from this, I was like, I need to pay this credit card off. And then yeah, cleared off the credit card, started putting money in a TFSA again. So that personally made me feel like, whoa, I made it. And then in terms of Milk Jar making it, like, it was moving into this space. I think this is about, we've been here 4.5 years now. So yeah, probably when I moved into this space, we did a custom with Jillian Harris at the time, who, home and garden darling, princess of BC, and was on, I think, The Bachelorette back in the day. So yeah, she's a pretty big influencer. And so doing that custom for her Jilly box, and starting to hire people and hiring staff, and then becoming a place where we were an inclusive employer and we were doing something different, and other businesses and people were looking up to us. I was just like, and we were getting a lot of emails and requests, and wholesalers wanting to carry us because of our mission. And then I think it was like in that year 3, we donated like $41,000 that year to Grit Calgary Society. And that donation jumped so much, because we raised $1 from the sale of every product to support initiatives that create inviting spaces and support children with disabilities to learn and grow. So that year was just wild. Paying personal debt off, donating so much money, getting a space, hiring staff, like businesses being like, whoa, what you're doing, Milk Jar, is amazing. And I think that's when Milk Jar started becoming more and more well-known. So yeah, we made it that year. And so everything after that has been a cherry on top. I honestly probably thought when I started Milk Jar in my home kitchen that that's all it was gonna be. I think, I maybe would work a couple markets. I think I always thought it'd be cool to do this if it got there. But maybe I thought I'd have a tiny little shop that was like 400 square feet and pouring candles, just me for all my live long days or something. I don't know. Yeah, so it's cool.
Awesome. Do you think the fact that you've already considered that you've made it, plus it kind of gives you a bit of weight off your shoulders when you're making decisions and just making sure that you're doing what you want to do for the reason that you want to do well?
Yeah. I would say it's almost gotten a bit harder. Like, as your company grows, more factors come into play. As your operations grow, as your spending, your expenses kind of grow, you have more people that you need to kind of be aware of, that, you got to make sure that they can get their paycheck and pay their rent. It does sometimes create that, okay, do we need to now we need to focus on the money side of things. It's not just me and 2 employees working at this place, or just me, where, if I can't pay payroll this month, it's just affecting me. or I could just not pay myself and I can pay these two people. But when you have 15 or 20 staff members, you got to make sure that you're keeping up, that even though it's good this month, it might not be good that other month. You don't have that fear and that anxiety all the time, but you do need to be aware. You need to know if the direction you're going is good and have that little safety net. But yeah, I think sometimes I can lose sight of a little bit of when things are hectic and, there's a lot more on the line. I think like higher rent, all sorts of things. Sometimes you can be like, okay, how do we cut costs and how do we do all this stuff? And I think always trying to come back to the place where, as long as our mission is being pushed forward, we are still creating job opportunities. We're still creating that ratio. My goal is to have always 25% of our staff, 25 to 30% of our staff be supported in Milk Jar. So that's it's been a nice number that I feel like we can have supported staff and unsupported staff where we can kind of pair people up and there's just everyone's being, really successful in their job. And making sure that we're, still thinking about them, their wages, and I really don't get it right all the time. Sometimes cutting shifts seems like the right thing to do, and I've been there. Like sometimes it's like, we don't have money for this. Because I remember being a server, and that's how restaurants work. It's like they don't need you. They cut your shift, and I've been in places like that too, where it's like, you kind of panic about the payroll or panic about, the wages or panic about the health spending accounts. There's adjustments that can happen and there's things that we need to learn and ways that I can, communicate really well what I need and make sure that I plan for that. But it's hard. You're constantly as a business owner and one that cares about people, you're like, the business side of me is telling me to do this, but my caring side of me is telling me to do this. And to be honest, we've swung in both directions. Really early on, we swung where, the work was out of whack a little bit. The play, the caring, the accommodations, spending a lot of time on things that were kind of out of our realm or out of my realm was kind of taking the front seat. And then we swung ways where, we kind of went strict and didn't have the space for it. And then people were upset, and then now it's like we're really trying. I'm always learning too, learning how can we care and how can we communicate really well and how can we just be an excellent workplace and make sure that everyone's on the same page. And I'm not doing things that really impact my team negatively, and my team's doing things that support me and support the company really well. It's always a balancing act, and it's hard to find, but I think it just takes time. I think you kind of got to swing in both ways to realize, okay, this is where we need to go. Yeah,
100%. When you're dealing with those harder times where you do have to make decisions, maybe better for the business, but worse for people, but you love the people, so maybe worse for, you're having to balance those hard things. How do you deal with that personally? That's a lot of pressure. When, like you said, you have 18 staff, right? There's a lot of things going on.
Yeah. How do I deal with it personally? I've been trying to meditate more, trying to breathe. I was doing this 10-week breathing practice from November last year to whatever 10 weeks was early February. That was really helpful. So trying to remain present, and that was what the breathing exercise was bringing myself back to presence. I was breathing 15 minutes in the morning before I went to work, 15 minutes before bed, and it was just normal breathing and bringing myself back to the present moment. Because you fear that when you live in time and you have all this anxiety about what could happen or what you're doing, and it can be pretty tough on you. I struggle, I cry. I feel it. I have my moments. I ask for support. I ask for feedback. I actually asked my team this morning at pre-shift for feedback, and then I was like, I'd love feedback from the team, and if you have any to give me for me or my Milk Jar, and I'm ready to receive it, because I think that's really important too, creating that space and not taking things too personally. So that's part of that breathing. It's just you can take things really to heart sometimes, and then when you are taking things to heart, just let it out, cry, don't make it mean something. I had a big one not long ago where I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. It was like to my partner at home. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And then I hope I didn't freak him out because he actually works here too. So you got to be careful not to freak out your team at the same time that you don't know what you're doing. But none of us know what we're doing half the time. Do you know what you're doing?
Absolutely.
No, of course not. Of course, I don't know what I'm doing. We're all like little kids, like just trying to figure out how to be big adults and make a difference and find purpose and make a good income and buy a house, like trying to juggle all these things. So, but it's good. It's like I feel like my partner knows me well enough now that when I have those moments, he just holds space, and then I'm like, whew. And maybe I have a bath or I go watch a show and I kind of forget about it. I'm like, wow, like I feel a lot better. Like I just needed to feel it. Say all those things about myself that I know aren't true. Like I don't know what I'm doing, and and I know I'm being mean to myself, but I just got to say it. And then you got to feel it. If you just push that stuff down and you keep pretending that you don't have feelings or everything's okay, it's gonna come up even worse ways. And truly, like that didn't happen too long ago, and I really came out the other side even the next day. So that's how I do it. It's gonna happen, and you just gotta feel it, and be kind to yourself, give yourself a big hug, and remember, if you're listening to this, I don't know what I'm doing. Aiden doesn't know what he's doing. Nobody knows what they're doing. And sometimes, like even milk jar, I think people see milk jar and are like, whoa, like wow, like I know what I'm doing. And I'm like, I know who I am. And I know what I like, and I know what I care about. And luckily what I like and care about, other people do too, which is great. And I hit a business at a right time, right place. I don't think Alberta really had a known candle company. It was pre-COVID, so I know there's a lot more candle companies, amazing ones that are coming out. So we were kind of one of the first ones. Alberta tends to be a little behind the times as like BC and Toronto, so I know there's a lot more candle companies out there. And then believing in myself and pushing forward and just doing it, like I think a lot of people get stuck in that, like taking the step to rent a space, taking the step to, buy a wax melter. And I always ensured too that people knew from the very, oh wait, I totally lost my train of thought right now. This is it. I really wanted to ensure that when we were bursting out the seams, that's when I took the next step. Like when I knew people liked it. So I was very lucky with milk jar, like the beginning part of it too, just starting it in my home. Like I wasn't opening a restaurant where you have to invest $100,000 in right away. Like I put 10 grand on a credit card, bought some stuff, signed up for some markets, and made it at home. And then once I ran out of space in my kitchen, I went into my basement. Once I ran out of space there, I went into my living room. Once I ran out of space there, then I was like, okay, I gotta get a space. But I waited till I was like, I couldn't make enough candles. So yeah, it's kind of, I hoped I answered that question too.
Absolutely.
I do the trail thing, which is really good.
No, I love it. Give me all the context. You were talking about the idea of kind of just being stuck in that unknown. You don't know what you're doing. You don't know what's next. All these different things. And I'm curious, do you think there's comfort in almost, it starts with discomfort when you realize, oh no, I don't know what I'm doing. And then you kind of, you sit with the idea, and then you realize nobody knows what they're doing, and it becomes more comfortable.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, I think that's a phase of just human development. I mean, I think it's like an early, early 20s, kind of mid 20s things where, there's all these expectations, and you kind of see people, and even the social media side of things where people just show you their highlight reel and you feel like a little left behind. But then as you get older too, you just start realizing that, no one really knows what they're doing, or people try things and then it didn't work out, or people try things and then they switched their job, or maybe it's when you're in your 30s and then you realize like, oh, my friends that did figure it out maybe with doing all those really mature things, finding that career path, or doing that school, or, marrying that person or whatever. Not always, but sometimes then they're, struggling to, feel like they really know who they are, and they're really living their true authentic life, and they're really happy. Maybe that job isn't making them happy, and then we're all just figuring it out. Yeah. So some people are unhappy earlier on, some people are unhappy a little later with their choices, but we're always just figuring it out. And all those moments when you are unhappy, I truly believe when you're like, what am I doing? Or I don't know, like those are those moments where you're like, you should be grateful for those moments, because like the only way out of that moment is, okay, you're gonna carry on a different direction, or you're gonna go do this thing now. Like you kind of come to a crossroads when you're at a place like that, and you're like, hey, the only way out is through. And at this moment, it might feel like kind of crappy, but a change has got to be made, and it might be really hard, and it might feel uncomfortable and kind of crappy for a little bit, but you're going to start doing things that more align with who you are and what you want, and not what other people think. Yeah.
You were talking about an idea of just doing, and that being a learning. Was that something that you learned the hard way, maybe sitting on something for too long, or?
Just doing it? I don't know. I think I moved. I think I've been a bit of a doer. Okay, like this is, so I think it just, I think it has to do with the fact that I have ADHD. I'm pretty decisive. I say I'm decisive. Some people say I'm impulsive. I don't like too many ideas in my head. Like when I have an idea, and I really do, I have a very strong intuition. I feel I very much trust when something feels right, or I have this little like spark. I'm like, ooh, like I want to do that. Like I just do it. Like I think it did start from a young age. Like when I was 21, I moved from Victoria. I grew up in Victoria and I moved to Calgary to go to UC. And I was accepted to UVic for the same program, but I was just like, I had this excitement to get out of my parents' house and this excitement to go to U of C and like meet new people, and it was gonna be kind of scary, and I was just like, I gotta do it. So that was a really hard thing at that age. Like I could have been very comfortable at home and going to university and not paying rent and stuff like that, and staying in my hometown and being friends with my high school friends, but I really pushed myself at that age, and I think that really, and when it worked out, like I love Calgary. I have so many amazing friends here. I thought I was gonna go back to Victoria. I thought I was even gonna go back in the summers during school, but then I met amazing people here. I got some jobs serving, was making good money during Stampede, and yeah, I just loved it. Like Calgary's so friendly. It's so friendly, and I think Calgary attracts a lot of people not from Calgary, which is why I think people are a little bit more outgoing. People don't have all the time their cliques or their groups of people, so people are super friendly here. So yeah, that's I think that push when I was young, and then continuing to kind of do uncomfortable things has just made me realize that just do it. Just like what's the worst that can happen? Yeah, I mean the worst thing that can happen is not knowing what could have happened.
Yeah, absolutely. You were talking about Calgary there and how great it is, and how it made a great impression on you personally, and that's a common theme. There's, especially during COVID and probably a little bit before, but there's been this big push for a local love and like supporting local and those sort of things, and I'm sure it extends beyond Calgary border, but definitely here. Did you feel that when things were tough during the pandemic and that sort of thing?
Yeah. Oh yeah, so much. Like Calgary's so supportive, and I feel like there's not a lot of a sense of competition here, like in between small businesses. I don't know if everyone agrees with that, but it feels like everyone wants to like build up everyone else's business and collaborate and work together. And yeah, like I think the local love here is very, very strong. There's a lot of like people that have a lot of pride, like living here, being from here. Even me now, I've been here 14 or 15 years almost now. So Calgary's now home. And yeah, I love it. And I'm like totally a West Coast girl, like sort of. I go home and visit, and I'm super proud to be living in Calgary. And I think Calgary can get, me being from Victoria, BC, so I'll go back and, Cowtown, Cowboys, Texas, Canada. And I very much thought that too. And to be honest, 13, 14 years ago, I'm sure it was probably even more that way. But yeah, like Calgary, there's a very different Calgary now compared to 15 years ago, I think. Like just from working a lot downtown, working at restaurants, seeing the clientele that was out, and the the amount of money and oil that was here, and now that's kind of faded and different industries have come in. There's more artwork, there's more diversity, there's more different people believing in different politics here too. And yeah, it's a really, really fun, beautiful, eclectic place. I think it's amazing, and I love the mountains. I love the ocean, but really you just look at the ocean. Like, I love the mountains because you can go skiing, snowboarding, hiking, just like being in the mountains, like 45 minutes away in Canmore is such a joy. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the geographical location obviously is one piece, and then just the people, like you were mentioning. It's just it's incredible, and it feels honestly surreal to anything else.
People are nice here. I think they're very nice. Anyways, I remember in UVic when I was, how old was I? 20, 21. I was so excited to go to UVic. So excited to try to get a boyfriend. And I remember it was so hard to meet people. And I remember like UVic is like 60% girls. I think that's like the natural kind of split there. And I remember just going out to like the club when I was like on Friday nights and like, gosh, I remember girls would hit on guys in Victoria. So if you're a guy, you should go to, and you are interested in girls, you should go check out UVic and go to Victoria. Cause it was like, I remember I would like be like asking guys out and hitting on. Then I came to U of C and like Calgary, and I was like 21, 22. And I remember just like being in, like girls were going to the bar in like just jeans. I remember in Victoria, it was like you had to be in a mini dress and high heels. And then you'd be asked out. So I was like, this is nice. I was like, people are a lot more friendly here. They ask you out. I remember being really excited about that.
That's hilarious. You were hinting, and we talked a little bit off camera about inclusive employment.
Yep.
I'd love to hear can you explain that, and then also why it's important to you?
Yeah, so at Milk Jar, we hire people with and without disabilities. So we became an inclusive employer about 4.5 years ago when we moved into this bay. And that was, I didn't know right when I started Milk Jar that was gonna happen. I mean, I never knew I was gonna have employees, but when we moved into this space, we already donated to programs that support children with disabilities. And why I really cared about donating to that group was because I had worked for a few years at Cause and Effect Foundation, which is an early intervention program with children with disabilities. In my kinese degree, sports wasn't really my interest. It was more the adapted physical activity. And in a practicum program there, I met a young man. I guess he was more of a teen at the time, and his mom, and I did his pool therapy with him. So we would swim one day a week, and it was just supposed to be a practicum for 4 months. We ended up swimming for 7 years together because I just enjoyed their company and getting to know him, and just having him in my life so much. And then so I kind of knew when I started Milk Jar, I was about to go to nursing school. I felt like I was a little disconnected from that group that I really cared about. I thought I was going to be an occupational therapist. Applied for a master's after kinese and didn't get in because I went out a bit too much in my undergrad degree. So my marks weren't too high. I mean, they were good. I was like a B student, but you need straight A's to basically get a master's now. So I was a little bummed I wasn't going to be an occupational therapist. So then when I started Milk Jar, I was like, I could maybe give back to this group, donate $1, and then I'll feel like so connected. And I'm going to choose programs that teen that I swam with for 7 years. I'll choose organizations that he would go to here in Calgary that he just loves so much. So the first organization was CATS Calgary, so the Canadian Association for Disabled Skiing. So he would always go to the sit ski program there, and I just heard great things. And Between Friends was another, Pace Kids. So that's how that started. So that was a big piece of Milk Jar, was giving back and being caring, and really wanting to uplift the disability community and just have them have the same access, learn the same skills, like just our company just support these really incredible people that I think our life has been there's just been so much exclusion, and it's been interesting too. Like I was really trying to think of, if like why don't other businesses hire inclusively, or like why is it that, and not that none do, but it's we get a lot of praise for what we're doing, and we're trying to really show that being inclusive is positive. It makes your business better, that, you know, like more businesses should be doing this. Like, it's creating these opportunities. The unemployment rate for people with intellectual disabilities is 68% in Canada. It's extremely high. They have amazing talent, and, you know, they really add to your business. And I really couldn't imagine, like, for myself, like someone, you know, a company just really struggling to find a job, just always getting turned down quite a bit, and just not working, offering your skills, not providing for yourself, not having the coworker relationship. It's, in my opinion, it's actually a really important relationship to learn. It's like a friendship, but a professional one. And just like, yeah, like getting to know people and having a space, offering your skills, going to work, and, you know, just giving that to society, and, you know, providing for yourself is just, it's important that everyone gets the opportunity to feel that. But I was really thinking on why more companies aren't doing this as much yet, and my goal is to hopefully encourage them to, is I really think that if I didn't have that experience in my university degree, I don't think I would have really put an importance or had this thought. And it's not that I wouldn't have wanted to, I just wouldn't have been maybe as aware and I think a lot of people just aren't aware, and which is no problem. And I'm willing to even share how my fears that I had. And I think we fear what we don't know. And if I didn't have that experience with that gentleman in my university degree, you know, I had never. I'm sad to say this, but our world has really not been set up to be inclusive beforehand. That was the first time when I was, 20, I was like 23 at the time. That was the first time I got to know and spent a lengthy amount of time with someone with a disability. I never, in any of my classrooms, they were always separate. We never had inclusion of the classmates with disabilities with the classmates without disabilities, like in any of our elementary school classrooms, middle school, high school, in any sports teams I played, in any jobs I've had. I've never, and so what subconsciously I think that builds in people is that we can't be together. We can't work together. It's not the way it's supposed to be. And I think people just need to ask themselves that question. It's not that anyone's maybe flat out saying this, but I think we all maybe have this ingrained notion that people with disabilities can't work with us, or they can't do the same job as us, or they can't do a job at our workplace. There's a reason why you don't see the visibility of disabled workers as often. And that's just not true. So we're really trying to show that at Milk Jar, that, you know, we all have gifts to offer, and, you know, it really makes the workplace better. And I couldn't imagine not having every single one of our staff members here. And our longest employees are Lauren and Amanda. They've been at Milk Jar 3.5 years. The employee retention, the positive workplace culture, we communicate better as a company. The community support that we've seen that is just really behind what we're doing. There's zero reason not to, in my opinion, and I really want to show that to people. I think there's just fear with that, and we don't need to be scared of what we don't know, and you don't know unless you try. I think, what did I say that earlier? The biggest fear is not giving it a shot, too. Yeah.
So an awareness issue, but also people just unknowingness of how to go about it. Maybe, what do you recommend that business or business owners do to kind of, you know, take a step in the right direction?
Yeah. So when I was first looking to hire people with disabilities at Milk Jar, I reached out to Between Friends because I also didn't know where to start. So Between Friends was an organization that we donated to, and I thought they could point me in the right direction. So even granted, like, there's service providers out there, and I think a lot of us don't know that they exist, because even I didn't exist at the time. But we reached out to Inclusion Alberta, and we've also reached out to Gateway Association. There's also Goodwill. I believe they have a program too as well. There's A couple other ones that I can't think of right now, but in every province, there are service providers that can connect you with job seekers, and they can set up the interview, they can find the applicants, they come to your business, they see what what needs you have, like is there lifting in it, is there walking, is there sitting, like what's the role and what are the tasks, and then they bring you resumes. That's what happened with Inclusion Alberta. And that was kind of how it all started. And then they support the onboarding a little bit. They're always a phone call away if I have any questions too. But yeah, we haven't had a site visit for a while, and we haven't needed one. And yeah, I've changed so much. I feel like I've become such a better boss in a lot of ways, like a better employer. I had to learn some things. And I would say more than learning, I had to unlearn a lot of things when I became inclusive too. I think I had to unlearn the biases that I had. I had to unlearn the things that I was doing that, wasn't, conducive to an inclusive workplace. I had to unlearn, just the notion of like what is good employment and what is good, like what's the most important thing in your business, and what's the relearn things about like efficiencies and and payroll and all this sort of thing, like those just basically ideas that if you're not getting the absolute fastest work and like the speediest work that's out there, it's not worth it or something, or and it's not about that. It's having everyone work to the best of their ability, the best of their effectiveness and their efficiency, and that they're trying. Like as long as people have a good attitude, are here to work, are here to just add to the positive culture, and are here to be, focused and have a good time at the same time, and, be a team and work all together to the whole mission of us creating inviting spaces and pushing this mission out there more. That's all you have to ask for. And it really, I found, has made a really enjoyable workplace for all my staff. Like I think everyone really enjoys working with people with different profiles in them. Mm-hmm.
Being a young entrepreneur, you have to learn a lot of things very fast, as you just alluded to. What are some of the most valuable lessons you've learned, or the most long-lasting?
An early one I learned was focus on progress, not perfection. That was a big one, because progress will eventually lead you to hopefully perfection, but perfection is also an illusion. It doesn't really exist, but if you just focus on being perfect, you're probably never going to put that foot in front of the other. So progress is always a goal. What else did I have to learn really fast? That you're not going to make everyone happy. I think that's been maybe that's a more me thing, because I think my goal is to make everyone happy. That's kind of more in me. I don't know if that's a typical entrepreneur boss kind of trait, but that's honestly just been a journey of me personally. I think you learn a lot about your own shit. Owning a business, having staff, having people be mirrors to your own stuff. When things are stressful, when things are, it's crazy Christmas busy season, when there's a lot of people that are, you're aware of and you're wanting to make this amazing place, but there's all these different moving parts. You can get really stressed out, and you can think you're doing the right thing, and maybe there was a better way to do it, but it's really a big mirror on you being secure and stable. You being the best version of you is so needed to be able to be the best person here. Like that was something I really, it would just be so much easier to work at another company and just maybe have all your own crap going on, and you can kind of stifle it down a little bit, do your job, and then go home, and it's just not as affected, or you just can go on and just be on your computer, no one bugs you, and then you just go home. But here, you really got to be on for a lot of people. You got to answer a lot of questions. You got to make the decisions. You got to make the right decisions, whatever the right decision is. And things come up. There's a lot of feelings too, and it can make me just see the things that I do that I'm like I don't like about myself that I need to change, or I really struggle with if it's giving feedback, or it's, you know, pretty much giving feedback. That's pretty much it. But those things that you really have to work on. So I do love growth though. Like I love being uncomfortable, I've realized. I didn't used to like it, but I welcome it with open arms because I see how much being uncomfortable gets you to that like next level of human. So I actually really enjoy it now. And anytime I have a little reaction or a little like ooh moment of stress of a client or being angry at this thing or, you know, being frustrated about something, I'm like, ooh, why am I frustrated? What is this teaching me? I'm like, there's a lesson in here right now. I'm getting a lesson. What is it? I make sure I do that now. So I'm a little bit more grateful that, you know, things can be up and down and all around and just roll with it. I mean, that's life, to be honest. Everyone's got stuff going on. We're all in it. And yeah, it's, I feel like I'm happy if I can show my stuff too sometimes now that, you know, we can really learn from these tough things that happen. If it's, you know, tough stuff with people personally or tough stuff going on here. Last year we didn't get a really big invoice paid for a really long time, and that really put a lot of strain on us. So, and that had to make me make some decisions. It was really tough, but we just tried to coast through though. We really did try to coast through, and then eventually we got it paid and we were like, okay, we're good. But it did put a little bit of stress, and then I was kind of exuding that a little bit here. So it's just us all understanding we're all human, even me and even you when you're starting something. You don't need that persona of, you know what you're doing and you don't need that persona. You need to know that you're confident in what you're doing, but it's okay that you're figuring it out too. And, you know, that'll build more connection and more vulnerability between you and your team and what you're trying to do. Makes you more of a real person. And I feel like we're coming into that day and age, like people want realness, people want connection, people want vulnerability. We don't want to just pretend that, you know, or just think that everyone is pretending, I think, anymore. And pretending is not very fun. Yeah, it's too much to keep that big coat of armor on and thinking, you know, well, what you're doing. Like it's a lot to bear. And if you're going into entrepreneurship, just understand what your coat of armor is, and also understand at the beginning it's okay if you have it too, because I did as well. Like you just gotta notice those times, and you're like, I remember with Milk Jar at the beginning. I remember I didn't want cell phone photos of, like, it was only me doing it. Like I was running the Instagram, and I wanted professional photos right away because I didn't want anyone to think like these were homemade. And I didn't want to be in the photos. I remember that, like right near the beginning, I was like, I don't want to be in them. I want people to think that these are from a big factory somewhere. And I remember noticing that, and I was like, what's the big deal? But I was like, it's interesting that I'm thinking that. But now looking back, I'm like, it's just because I was embarrassed. I wanted to be here before I was there. I was trying to skip the journey. And I think it was after 6 months I started putting photos of myself on, and, you know, yay, the homegrown thing is actually cool. And yeah, because you want a certain persona that you're a success story right away, because you're a little embarrassed, because you're afraid that it might not work out. So yeah, you want to kind of show off that, we're already successful, even though we haven't gotten one single sale. So, I mean, I know that's why, like, having really nice photos, a part of it is to, you know, look a certain way, look good, have that aesthetic. There's nothing wrong with it, but I knew my reasons behind it at the beginning were more out of embarrassment versus just like wanting it to just look nice. It was like, I can't have anyone think I'm making this, or not have too many people know and not think that it's made in a house. Like, yeah, it's just interesting. So just, you notice those things, and you're gonna do it early on. That's gonna happen, but just make sure when those little things happen, you just notice them and ask why, and just be like, okay, that's why I'm doing it. Yeah, it's just noticing.
It sounds like your mentality on that subject of transparency and you know, openness has changed since the beginning to now, obviously. Do you think that's a good way that you know, being vulnerable and that leads to connecting with people in a deeper way, both customers and staff and that team, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I think so. I hope so. It creates like another human element, I think, to it, that, you know, we can see each other eye to eye, and, you know, I recently read listened to the audiobook, The Power of Vulnerability by Brene Brown. Oh my goodness, it's amazing. I highly recommend it. It's like an Audible, but it's a talk she did. It's like over a few days, all about vulnerability and shame and, the being connected and the wholehearted. And I think, vulnerability is what connects us. Like at the end of the day, just being honest, and vulnerability isn't always like sharing like too much about your life, but it's just being like, I'm having a hard time, and I just got to be honest with you. I'm just having a bit of a hard day. We still haven't been paid from this one, and using discernment, telling the right people what they need to know. But like telling my managers, like, hey, still haven't been paid by this client, and I'm a little stressed about XYZ that we got to pay for. Just being honest. Instead of just holding it back. But there is judgment that needs to be used with it. That's probably not something I need to tell all my staff or something like that. Like, especially if it's something where, we can't pay payroll or something. But I would always make sure we always got payroll covered. But we were dipping into, there was a period where I was like, all right, we're going in our overdraft. And we had a massive overdraft, which was really good. I always made sure, so payroll was always gonna be covered, but it was more that like I don't know if we can get another bay next year. These are things like, if this doesn't get paid, this is gonna set us back a year. We can't expand. And I'm like bummed about it. So, but yeah, using good judgment, and vulnerability is important, and using that kind of awareness on how vulnerable do you get? What is vulnerability? How do you share? And vulnerability, is this connecting us or is this pushing us away? That's it. It's like, what is this gonna do? Is this gonna bring us closer together and just have understanding, or is this going to be a vulnerability where it's like maybe too much sharing, or it's not appropriate and it's actually going to push this person further away? Like I said, what do we always talk about? Balance. It's always balance. Like, it's figuring that out, and we always like don't get it right, but that's how you figure it out. You swing one way, maybe a little other way. You learn from it, and then you be honest. Like, I overshared a little bit too much, or I didn't do the right thing there. And, I just want to acknowledge that I'm going to do this next time. And I really try to do that too now with my team. Acknowledge when I kind of made a mistake, or want to receive feedback too. Because we all do it. Yeah.
Have you found that there's a time and a place for when to be vulnerable and how much, depending on the person, or is it always case by case, or what does that look like for you?
Yeah, vulnerability is just, vulnerability isn't, I guess it's just like it's not always just the hard stuff. It's just like the authentic stuff. It's like it's making sure you're not saying yes to something when you really wish you were saying no. So I think there is always a time for that. I think we should always be doing that, like even if it's uncomfortable, right? So, yeah, I think there's always a time for vulnerability. And the thing is, who is the person? Who is this person to me? What is my level of vulnerability? What should I be sharing? Am I being authentic to myself? And yeah, it's just using that good judgment at the end of the day. And I think we always need to be able to be vulnerable. And being vulnerable doesn't mean like, having a big meltdown. That's not being vulnerable, that's having a meltdown. Maybe though, that piece of vulnerability would be really good with a therapist or with your sister. That's where I told my partner, I had a moment like that with my partner. And I was like, yeah, and I don't do this often, but a nice big bend. And I was like, and then my partner was like, oh, it kind of scares me when you do that. And I was like, oh, he's like, it feels like you're yelling at me. And I wasn't yelling at him at all. I was like, I'm sorry. I was like, okay, I'm gonna, in the future, I liked yelling like that about that thing. I don't wanna do that to anyone. I just need to do it to one person because it just feels really good. I was like, okay, I'm gonna do it to I was like, I know who to do that with, my sister. Because my sister does it with me all the time. And I'm like, we have that relationship. It's gonna be safe, it's gonna be vulnerable, it's gonna be that thing that I needed. So I was like, hey, I'll call her next time. And then for you, I'll be more responsive and just share with you what's going on. But I was like, sometimes you just gotta know what you need to do and who to do it with. But making sure that you're being honest with where you're at and what's going on with you. Yeah.
So it is a learned case by case.
It's learned case by case, yeah. You figure it out. I still probably don't have it figured out, to be honest.
So going from, making candles in your house to eight years later, now having, coming on 3 warehouse bays and 18 staff. What are some of the things that you think, maybe core values or just things that you did that kind of helped your business become so successful so quickly?
I think what made us different, really making, highlighting the differences in our company. I remember when I did the ATVX program, that was a really huge piece of that. It's like, hey, why should someone choose your candle company over another candle company? Why should I choose your video company over another video company? It's really being able to share what makes you different. And I think the clean burning candles, the wood wicks at the time, I think there's lots of wood wicks now, but at the time that was a feature that made us different. So we don't really share too much of that anymore, but we really share that, that we donate $1. We have the donation piece. We're an inclusive employer. We teach candle making classes. There's not too many of those here. We make custom candles, like all those sorts of things that make you different are really, really huge. I think, gosh, it's like, there's no perfect recipe. It's so funny, when I get asked this, I'm like, I wish I could just tell people a list of what they could do, but yeah, making sure that you believe in what you're doing. Because what I've seen in businesses, in my business and as some other businesses, the ones that I've seen take off and be successful and work, the ones that don't work, the ones all that I believe don't work, and I think I've seen this trend in all of them, they weren't doing it because they cared about that thing they were doing. They were doing it as a get-rich-quick scheme. I was like, ooh, I have this next big idea. I found the thing. And those can work. I do think they can. You maybe invent Velcro, or I don't know. There's something that we always need, and some new thing comes up, and then it's a brand new thing, and yeah, it goes, and then you patent it, and then you make all this money. Like, those things can work, but if you can't speak about your company, like, I was so passionate about what we were doing, and I remember being at markets and I could just spit off like, where we use this wax and these scents I made, and it's because I like them, and this is why I like each and every one of these scents. And then talking about like the inclusion aspect and, our donation, and like I could really speak to it because I made it because I cared about it. I liked those scents. I like candles. I like giving back. There's so many things that I love making customs and working with other businesses. So many things that I like doing, so I could really speak to it. And then I found people that could also wanted to get on board with it. So I think that's the biggest thing, is if understand why you're doing it and can you speak to it from the heart. And because people, that's what they will support, and that's what will get them excited too. If you're excited about it, they'll be excited.
Mm-hmm. That alignment and that passion. And the passion is so clear in even just speaking with you for the past little bit. Has that ever wavered?
The passion? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Not the passion. Wondering if I could do the business. That, like, the whole, I don't know what I'm doing. But understanding, because I don't know, I came to a place, it was a few years ago, I thought I was stuck, I had to work 60-hour work weeks. It was a very odd thing. And even though I had all these staff and I wasn't delegating appropriately, and then kind of realizing that I need to put things in place to give myself better work-life balance and understand what I'm looking for. I want to push this, but one of the most valuable things to me personally is time. I really want to, I remember my partner a couple of years ago asked me, he's a big creative. He's like, what do you want to learn? He's like, because he loves learning, and I love that about him. And I love learning too. I love learning how to bake a new type of cupcake. I remember I used to love baking. I used to love, I love crafting. And literally though, the last thing I learned how to make was a candle, and then I turned it into a business, and I never created anything new ever again. And I was like, or I stopped for 5-6 years. And when he asked me that, he's like, it was at a time when I was overworked, really busy, putting so much energy into this. And I guess business was what I was creating. But he asked me, he's like, oh, what do you want to learn? Just for you, I love to do things. And I was just like, I remember looking at it and being like, learn something. And I was like, I don't have time to learn something. I was like, no. And I think I said it with such like conviction too. Like, are you silly? Like, no, I can't learn anything. The last time I learned something, I made a business out of it. And now look where it got me. I'm so busy. I have no more time. But I said it with like no thought. Like I didn't think anything of it. And I remember him telling me, him now, because I'm not in that place. I literally bought a saxophone the other day because I've never played it before. But I was like, oh, I'm gonna take saxophone lessons. He's like, I love jazz. So I was like, oh, and I played in band. I played the flute. I was a flute girl. And I thought I could, learn that. And it was really cool. I haven't learned it yet, but I was like, that's fun. I bought like a cross stitch and I've been doing it the last few months. I love puzzling again. Like I started doing things. So I'm out of that place now. But I remember my partner told me like not long ago, he's like, remember when you said that? And that's when I was really kind of in a weird place with work and overworking myself and losing my personal passion because I was giving too much of myself. And I remember him telling me, he's like, do you remember when you said that? He's like, that made me so sad. He's like, I didn't say anything at the time, but that made me really sad to hear. Like when I first met you, you were this like, just started your candle company, like zest for life, like learning things, learning about business. And then you just came to this place where you were just typing on your computer all day long and running around this place, like doing too much. And and I was like, whoa, I remember saying that. I remember saying that as like, just this is, like, no, I'm not learning something, and that I was like almost okay with it. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, I've work-life balance. I'm not working over 40 hours. I tell everyone here, do not work over 40 hours. It is not expected. You can go to the next day. We're just making candles. We're not building medical equipment. Like we can go to the next day because that work-life balance is so important. So, yeah.
I love that mentality.
Yeah, but sometimes you got to go to those places to realize that you got to come back. Yeah. I think I feel like this is the whole theme of our talk right now with this podcast is kind of coming doing this and then doing that and then you do this. Like, and it takes time. It's maybe if you're aware of it right away. I mean, I don't think I was capable of working that hard, to be honest. Like I love kind of dinking around and just playing and relaxing. So I couldn't believe I got to that place, but yeah, you can come back out of it.
Yeah, it is. And it's finding those balances, as you alluded to, right? This whole time, it's in every aspect.
Yeah.
What your values are, how you spend your time doing all these things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Awesome. What does milk jar mean? What does the name mean?
It's kind of a funny story. It probably isn't what anyone would think it meant, or how I came up with it, I guess. Well, not only is it a cool name, I like that it's like almost like we created a noun. Like I didn't really realize at the time, like a milk jar doesn't really exist. Like you'd never call something a milk jar. Like you'd say a glass of milk, a milk bottle, a bag of milk, a carton of milk. So it was really interesting when I realized right away when I would have customers come back and rebuy from me, like at markets, they would call them the candles milk jars. They're like, oh, I'm here to get another milk jar. And I was like, oh, like, it's like a noun. I was like, oh, you're like other people make candles, we make milk jars. So it's been a very memorable name, which is really cool. It's kind of like a Q-tip. You don't call it a cotton swab, you call it a Q-tip. So. But how I came up with the name is kind of just a random little story. I was trying to come up with a brand name, sitting at my kitchen table. I think I had a couple of the candles out looking at them. I was like, it's gotta be something cool, super cool. Okay, what are brand names that I think are cool? And at the time, I was drinking a glass of wine, or a bottle of wine probably, because the bottle was on the table. I was by myself too. And I'm not a crazy drinker, but I do love very good wine. I think maybe I was treating myself because I was starting my new business. And I don't think they sell it anymore. And I think they rebranded too, but it was a Zinfandel from California. They sold it at Kensington Wine Market, and it was called Jelly Jar. And it had the cutest paper label with this tiny little, like I think I even drew inspiration for my labels because I had a little milk bottle on my paper labels at the beginning, but it was a little like glass, like jam jar with like red wine in it, and it looked like etched, and it was called Jelly Jar, and I thought the name was so cute. So I was like, okay, looking at this bottle one, I'm like, okay, so jelly jar. I'm like, what else do I like? Like, that's a cool name. And then I was like, hey, my favorite cocktail bar is Milk Tiger. And I was like, yeah, that's my favorite cocktail bar to go to. And I was like, Milk Jar. And I was like, oh, that sounds pretty good. So I literally just combined two of my favorite alcoholic things and came up with Milk Jar.
Love it.
So Milk Tiger, if you're listening, or the owners, I'm so sad you closed. But back in the day when it was a little hole in the wall on Mission and 4th Street, the best old fashioned. There was a painting of a sloth in a suit. I don't know if you ever went there. Do you remember that? I wish I had that painting. The little white tiger like outside. I was like, oh, this is so cool. Like there's no words Milk Tiger, it was just this white tiger. Oh my God. Anyways, Milk Tiger, great cocktail bar, amazing drinks, amazing vibe, people, homegrown kind of place. And yeah, you inspired my name Milk Jar, as well as the bottle of wine jelly jar, the winery jelly jar. Yeah, so that's it.
I love that it's full circle. It's, the same vibe, the inspiration became what you've made it, right?
Yeah, it's just always, everything about Milk Jar was like kind of things I liked. I was like, I like this. Hopefully someone else likes this too. And luckily someone else liked it. So I think I realized, I used to not think I was a very creative person. I've realized I am quite a very creative person. I think growing up, I always thought creativity was drawing, and I cannot draw. Because my sister, I was very good in math and things like that in sports, and my sister was good at drawing and painting and singing. So I thought that was what creativity is. I cannot sing either. I didn't really realize that, even starting a business is just like doing something, like creating something out of nothing. Anything, whatever that thing is creativity. And yeah, it's been a really fun journey of self-discovery. And I'm feeling really, really happy. It's been such a journey over the last 8 years, coming up to 8 years. I'm sure I'll have more of my seasons of personal growth in it because that's what, running a business does to you. But I'm here for it, and I'm just excited to just meet more people and see where this goes and see where other people take Milk Jar and see the impact that we can make. And, I hope we can really push the inclusive employment in Calgary. And my goal is, we always hire seasonally for Christmas, is, have our seasonal hires find permanent employment afterwards. That is my next goal of how we can continue. I'm always trying to rethink how can we keep pushing our mission of creating inviting spaces, and when the time's right, if we can, support other businesses really with no red tape. We just bring people on seasonally because we always do it at Christmas, and then the goal is to find them a job afterwards. To another local business in Calgary, where we can fluff up their resume. We can have them help guide them to learn all these amazing skills if they need to. We can really showcase all the great work that they did here with us, and we can support their, interview and onboarding, and just be that safe connection, and that, I think, as I said before, there might be fear of where to start, of how to do it, and I would love if businesses that I already know, feel really comfortable already engaging with me, I can be that bridge, and I'm more than happy to be that bridge. And it's okay that we are scared of things. I want people to know that, just understanding what your fears are and what you're, what you're scared to do or jump into, and where it's important. When nothing would ever get done if we didn't do what scared us. So,
absolutely, yeah, lean into that.
And that's how we're going to see change in this world too. It's just gotta go for it. Take a chance on someone with a different profile than you, offer them a job at your company and pay them what they're worth. And, I believe as a business owner, I feel very privileged owning a business in Canada. It is our job and our privilege to do this for other people, to provide job opportunities. And, why not provide it for a group of people that have an unemployment rate of 68% in Canada? It's just unacceptable. It's not okay. And they have such amazing gifts to bring to your company, and it makes your company better in the long run.
Yeah, there's no losing. It's all wins.
No, it's all win, honestly. And I am happy to tell anyone all the wins we've had here. And if it's a thing about profit margin, I'll even talk about that too. Since being inclusive, our profit margin has increased in relation, and our revenue has increased 350%. We've continued to grow. We've continued to profit. So, You never want to make anything about numbers, but if that is what's going to get through to some business owners, I'm willing to talk about it. Makes you profitable and it makes you a better company. So get on board.
Absolutely.
Reach out.
Where can we send people to reach out and follow along?
Yeah, so our website's milkjar.ca. There's a bunch of different tabs on workshops, custom candles. There's a connect you page that shows where we're located, and you can purchase candles there. We're also located in Calgary on 28th Street near I can never say this, Marlborough Mall.
Marlborough Mall.
Marlborough Mall. Very close to Marlborough Mall. You can, if you Google us, you'll be able to find us. I could say the address, but you can just Google us. And my email, you can always reach out to, and it'll always get filtered to the right person, contact@milkjar.ca. You can always reach out, and then myself and Ray are always on that email, and we can always filter it to anyone that it needs to go to for who you're looking for here.
Awesome. Well, Holly, thank you so much for your time and your insights and the business that you're building and everything that you're doing here is incredible, and sharing your story with the inclusive employment aspect as well is huge, and everybody can benefit from that. So I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me and letting me share my story, and speak with you today. It's a lot of fun. I love being able to share with people, and yeah, hopefully someone got a little nugget out of it.
Oh, I'm positive. Thanks.
Thank you.